My why is because I believe every single person deserves to be heard. That every single person has greatness within them.
Hello and welcome back. I am Kate McKay and we are all about mastering your life. And today I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce my special guest, Jeremy Britton. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kate. Good to see you again, mate.
Good to see you. So there's a little bit of background, but mostly I want you all to find out about Jeremy through his incredible knowledge. But just as a background, he's a financial planner, best-selling writer. He is also really in the markets, has a real long history of being in the financial markets, and is now a Bitcoin kind of dude. But we're going to get all into that because it's one of my passions is the markets. And maybe people don't know that about me, but I'm really interested in this, and we're going to have some debate, some discussion, and we're also going to learn more about you, which I can't wait.
Sweet, let's do it.
All right, cool. So just first off, just tell me, where are you located, and where did you grow up?
I'm sitting in Australia at the moment. I think I'm exactly halfway around the world from you. So it's 7 p.m. where you are, it's 7 a.m. where I am, which is lovely. I grew up in Australia. I've lived in Australia all my life. I did live in Bali for a couple of years after I retired the second time, but I just keep going back to work. I've started 13 different businesses, and I get bored. I just want to do something new. So mostly been in Australia, but I have travelled a lot around. Spent a few months in Africa and a few months over here, and all different places.
Yes. So would you consider yourself an early adopter? I love that you've had much success in your business. I mean, you've started businesses and you've been very successful in your businesses, but would you consider yourself an early adopter, a person that can kind of smell a trend and is willing to take that risk?
Probably not early enough, to be honest. Some of my mates started getting into Bitcoin, like when it was free, when you could just solve a captcha and get Bitcoin. They'd make 5 Bitcoin a day, mining Bitcoin and things like that. I think I first heard about Bitcoin when it was about $2 or $3. One of my friends who's a financial planner said, "Hey, you should get into this. This is really exciting." And he gave me the white paper. And if anybody's read the Bitcoin white paper, it's super complicated. It's all about math and the Byzantine generals problem and computers. And I was like, I don't understand that stuff. I'm not doing it. He got into it really, really heavily, and I didn't. So it was like 2011, 2012. And so I just basically ignored it. I was just doing my thing, running my business. And it was 2014, 2015. And I get a lot of outsourcing, like the phones are answered in Fiji, the website's done in India, someone in Indonesia is answering my emails. And I'm sending money to these people. I was complaining to one of my friends who's in business saying, "Oh my God, it cost me $20 for a bank transfer. And if the person in an emerging country doesn't have a bank, I have to send them by Western Union. And it cost me $60 to send them $1,000 and blah, blah, blah." And my mate said, "I just use Bitcoin." And I said, "I've heard of that. What is it again? Remind me." And he said, "Oh, it's just gold that you email to people." And I went, "Oh, and it's gold and they can just cash it out and they can just use the money anywhere in the world." And he said, yeah. So I jumped onto a website because there wasn't any exchanges back then to buy some Bitcoin. I looked at the price and it was up and down and up and down and up and down. I think it was about $500, $600 at the time. And it was fluctuating like 300, 700. And I said to Andrew, like, I can't send this to someone as a payment because it's so volatile. He said, "No, if you send it to them at 9 o'clock and they cash it out at 9:15 or 9:30, then you don't worry about it." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I bought, maybe $1,000, like one Bitcoin or something. And then I was using little payments to pay these guys $100 here and $100 there. And by the time I figured out, oh, look, I've spent all that Bitcoin, I need to go and get some more. I went back to my wallet and went, there's more than $1,000 in there. How is that possible? Because I didn't realize Bitcoin was scarce. I didn't realize it was a store of value. I didn't realize it was
Wow.
digital gold and it would increase in value. And at that time, my mate Andrew was working on the Ethereum project. And he said to me, "Hey, there's this Ethereum thing. It's kind of like Bitcoin, but you can build on top of it like Lego." And I went, "Oh, yeah, show me that." Because obviously he was right about the Bitcoin. And then he's like showing me all these little businesses. And there was Power Ledger and there was Solana, and not Solana, sorry. Can't remember the name of it. Anyway, there's a few businesses, solar power. were coming out and building, and I went, oh, this is like a little tiny stock market. And I've spent more than 20 years in the stock market buying businesses and valuing businesses and things like that. And I went, oh, I can actually do this, looking at what
Right.
they
So
now
you,
call
you
the
saw that it
altcoins.
was like buying shares in a way.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Exactly.
Right.
There's these little companies and little people building things long before they started with the meme coins. But there was people who were starting up a little business in their garage, and they lacked the liquidity to get onto the ASX or the Nasdaq or whatever, because that's very expensive. But you can start a little business in your garage and spin up $1,000 worth of coins for a couple of dollars, and then you could sell those on an international market. I'm like, this is amazing. I can
Wow.
buy little shares in business in China or in America or whatever without brokerage, without going through a stockbroker, without currency exchange. It's really a great opportunity, and that's when I got in. So I was kind of an early adopter, but just not early enough.
Right. Well, are we ever early enough? I mean, I would say, that's the biggest challenge, right? When we're developing businesses or we're onto an idea, is it's always like, oh, wait, I missed it. A missed opportunity. So
Yeah.
if you could just give us a little background, your financial background, what was your interest in numbers? Were you always a numbers kind of guy, even as a child?
I think I enjoyed math up until about grade 10 or something like that, when they introduced algebra. Math was fun, math was predictable. But then there's like 16A minus 4F, and like, oh, geez, I actually wagged math for the entirety of grade 12. You don't probably have grade 12 where you're from, but yeah, our math teacher got sick and ended up going off to hospital, and they replaced the math teacher. And I thought, this is my one opportunity to skip out on the class and just not go, because the new teacher won't know me because I won't know that I'm there. So I wagged math for the entirety of grade 12. And then when I turned up at the end of the year, I had to do the exam. And the teacher's like, who the hell are you?
So wag
I
means
just, I
skip.
just, yeah. I absolutely hated math. I liked the math of money. Like, if I buy something worth 60 cents and give you $1, I know the change I got to get back. But,
Right.
the algorithms and the sine and the cosine and that sort of trigonometry is like, no. So
No.
I was kind of not too good at math at school. But on leaving school, I just decided I wanted to be really rich. I didn't come from a rich background. None of my friends and family were rich, none of our social circle. But I liked shiny things. I liked little sports cars. I wanted to be able to drink champagne on a yacht one day and that sort of stuff. And I started talking to some other people. Once I'd finished school and left home, I got to mix in other circles. And I'd talk to a real estate person, and they'd say, yeah, you can make a lot of money selling real estate, but people get critical mass. Once they've got 5 or 6 properties, that's kind of it. They tend not to buy too many more. And there was another guy who sold cars and said, yeah, some people have got a big car collection like Jay Leno, but most people, once they've got 3 or 4 cars, they don't buy any more, and they stop buying for a few years.
Mm.
And there's this one guy who was actually in financial planning. And he said to me, this is the one industry that you never reach critical mass, because everybody wants to be a millionaire. And then when they become a millionaire, they want to become a decamillionaire. And then they want
Yes.
to be a centimillionaire. And then they want to be a billionaire. And they just keep coming back to you. It's the industry where you can make the greatest relationships, because you'd be talking to this person every 3 to 6 months for the rest of their life. And they
Mm.
just always want to keep coming back. And I said, that sounds like a good business. Building relationships, long-term relationships, and with people who just want to keep coming back and keep coming back forever. I'm like,
Right.
get me into financial planning. So
So that brings me to the question about you saying the relationship aspect of it. What would you recommend to the viewers and listeners about building relationships? I mean, that's clearly a superpower. I knew that right off when I met you. And I don't think in general, most people are easy to trust. I mean, I feel like that's something that I can build pretty easily, but I'm just curious about what your strategy is to build relationship and trust, particularly something that's very, very vulnerable, people's money,
mhm.
and their psychology.
Yeah. I think, whether it's a financial relationship or any kind of relationship, um, I say to people, if you don't have millions of dollars, or if you don't have a great personal relationship, then you've got an AV problem. All right.
Mm.
AV is add value. If
Mm,
you meet someone and the first time you meet them, you say, "Hey, can you lend me $20 for a bus ticket, or can you lend me $10? Can you give me a smoke or whatever?" Sure, most people sort of awkwardly give you something and then walk away, but they don't want to deal with you again.
no.
But the first time you meet someone, you have a conversation with them, and you find out they're really into Batman comics, or they're really into antique cars, or they're really into whatever, and you just store that little bit of information away. And the next time you see that there's a Bob Kane exhibition at the Goma, or there's an antique car show coming to town, you follow them up with a phone call. Add some
Mm,
value, do what they love, and find out what your partner likes and do that. I mean, how how hard is it to have a great relationship? Always add value. And
mm,
oftentimes it's just a phone call, it's an email. We used to clip out articles in a newspaper and send them to people in the physical post, because I was born before email existed, kids. So just adding value and just doing that consistently. One of my favorite quotes is from Warren Buffett, and he said, "It takes you 20 years to build your reputation, and it takes you 20 seconds to ruin it."
mm.
So if you're adding value, if you're just sowing seeds for years and years and years, and you don't try and rip someone off, you don't go for the short-term gain, you don't go for the get rich quick, you build a relationship with your clients, with your partner, with your whatever. I mean, you can be a loving husband or wife for 20 years, but you kiss the secretary once and you're gone,
Yeah,
right? So just
right.
paying attention to those little tiny things, it's very easy to ruin your life in a split second, but it just takes time. Over time, you're just adding value. And I mean, people sort of look at me and go, "Oh, how do we trust you? Because crypto's full of scams and rat bags and stuff like that." And I just say, "Look, Google me. Don't even go to my website. Just Google me anywhere on any site, because I've been doing this for 33 years."
Right. I love
And
that.
I have confidence that no matter how deep you go down the dark web and Google me, you won't find any bad information, right? I'm
So good.
confident of that, because I
Right.
just do the right thing by people, and it might take 3 to 5 years, but eventually they do the right thing by me.
Yeah.
The old thing, whatever you send out comes back to you. It's karma, it's sowing and reaping. It's in the Bible, it's in Hinduism, it's in Buddhism. That's a spiritual law. That's a quantum physics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. It's just sometimes the pendulum might take 3 or 4 years to swing back. And I've got clients. I had one little old lady who came in to see me in my office one day, and she only had about $10,000 to invest. And it takes the same amount of time to do up a financial plan for someone with $10,000 as it does for 10 million, right?
Sure.
Because you're still doing the same things. You're diversifying, you're picking stocks, and blah blah blah. But for this little old lady, $10,000 was like her life savings.
Oh,
She was
right.
she was on the what do you call it, the welfare, the pension, and she got the money every week to pay her bills. But her $10,000 was her core thing that she had. And I went, okay, I'm going to look after her as if she's worth millions of dollars, because to her, this is millions of dollars. This is everything that she's got. And I took care of her. And literally 3 or 4 years later, I got a phone call from this guy. And he said, "Hey, you don't know me. My name's Craig, but you've been looking after my mum. And she always raves about how great you are and how you explain things to her simply and how you've looked after her money, and her money's done well conservatively." And he said, "I want to come and invest with you." And he literally brought in like $1.4 million to the table. It's like, holy crap. I didn't even know she had a son. She'd never even
Right.
mentioned her son.
Wow.
So,
Yeah. It's like doing the good. And what I love is just in your way you're talking about it. It's pretty effort. It's just who you are as a human. Who modeled that for you, Jeremy?
um, it's a bloody good question. I think like my folks, particularly my dad, because he was the principal of the school. So he's always in meetings with teachers and with parents and that sort of stuff. And he had to know who was who in the zoo and who did what and that sort of stuff. And so if the school needed some earthworks, he'd phone the parents of one of the kids at the school who actually had an earth moving business, or if they needed catering or something like that, he'd use his circle.
Oh,
Um, and obviously they'd want to do him a favor, like they'd give him a reasonable price. And just knowing the connections of who's who and who knows what and who does what. And he's always sending out value, because he's educating the kids and looking after them and doing that sort of stuff. And also bringing them business, because they would prefer to have an institution paying their bill rather than an individual, because institutions tend to pay on time and in full. So, yeah, it's probably, part of a religious upbringing as well. the sowing and reaping and karma and
Right.
all that sort of stuff.
So your
And it
father
really
lived
has.
those good moral values. It sounds like your dad was also a connector of someone people trusted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
connect someone to someone to someone. So, you could ring up and say, hey, look, I need something done. He's like, oh, yeah, I know a guy who does that.
Wow. I love that. Well, that's an innate thing. And I think it's kind of funny because I know I was brought up Catholic. What were you brought up as?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say I was the same. 18 years as Catholic.
Yeah. And you know what?
But once I
I'm
left
so
home, I was like,
grateful. But the thing is, a lot of people like say no. But I think that the beautiful thing about being brought up Catholic is that much of our teaching has been an innate part of us that's been modeled by the values that maybe our parents didn't even talk about, but they lived. This is a
yeah,
common theme that I see in people who are brought up Catholic, even though I say, "Oh gosh, I'm nothing," I'm not, I'm like a lapsed Catholic, whatever else.
yeah,
But Catholics have a certain vibe because I truly believe the models of our religion, our spirituality was so imbued in who our parents were and how we were raised. It's something we don't even need to talk about. We just
yeah,
can recognize it. I certainly do. So I appreciate that. I'm grateful for your parents and bringing such a beautiful human as you to the world. So I thank your parents and thank you for introducing us to your dad. It's a really sweet thing. I love that, how people come into who they are is sometimes through the mess and sometimes it's through just real simple modeling. And it's really a beautiful thing. So you and I were talking a little bit before we hit record, talking about gold. And of course I'm a gold bug. But I'm also very much interested in your company. And, I'm from Boston. So you having a company called Boston Trading. I'm like, wait, you from Boston? You don't sound like it. And so talk to us a little bit about, well, let's hear about what Boston Trading is, your company,
yeah.
and what you're passionate about these days. Because I know I'm passionate about playing with you in this space as well.
I guess, if you look at, like, I've had 6 financial planning businesses, 7 retail businesses. But it's all about helping people. I mean, once upon a time, I had a shop that actually sold wedding dresses. But again, back in the days before the internet, if you were planning a wedding, you had to go, okay, I've got to look in the yellow pages and find who sells wedding dresses and go there. Then I've got to find who sells hire cars. Then I've got to find who does cakes. Then I've got to find this. And there was no wedding planners back then. It was like you had to do it yourself. And it was really a big ask. Like, I was planning my wedding at the time. And it was very, very difficult. I talked to a few other people who'd planned theirs, and they were just tearing their hair out and saying it was the most stressful time of their entire life. And I went, okay, I'm going to help people. And because I'd been phoning all the cake people and the suit hire guys and all this sort of stuff, I said, I'm going to set up a shop where I sell the wedding dresses, but I also provide introductions to all of the other businesses who they're
Wow.
out there. They were spending money on advertising and that sort of stuff. I said, I'm going to send you business. All I want is like 5% or 10% of whatever you get. So the car hire guy would pay me and the suit hire guy would pay me, but the customer could literally walk into the shop, have a look at dresses, and while they were there, they could choose their rings, they could choose all of their other things, all in the one location. So, man, when was that? 91, I think.
Yeah, you were like
Yeah,
the original wedding
92.
planner.
Yeah, way back. And even with this Boston business, yeah, you've blown the lid off it. I'm from Australia, so I talk funny. But if you look at the logo, the Boston is my little puppy dog's head. So it's a Boston Terrier. That's where the name came from. But after I discovered, having this conversation with Andrew, and discovered, there's a little tiny stock market that's unregulated.
Mm.
Because some people would know this. If a stock price of a stock goes up 30% in a day, the Nasdaq will just shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
The stock market will just close. If the stock drops by more than 20%, they'll just stop trading. We've seen that with GameStop. Some of the older people would have known that with 9/11. When
Yes.
the planes hit the tower, the stock market closed for 4 days. Um,
Yes.
so crypto was an unregulated stock market where you could literally make 1,000% in a day, or you could lose 100% in a day. And you could invest in any country, anywhere in the world. It wasn't policed. There was no borders. It was very exciting. And my best year in the stock market, 30 something years in the stock market, my best year, I made 800%.
Wow.
Absolute one year.
Insane.
Most other times I'd make like 30, 40, 50%. One year I made 400%. That was a pretty good year. But in crypto, I could make 300% in a day. I could make 1,000% in a month.
Mm.
And I started to talk to some of my financial planning mates, my stockbroker mates, accountants, lawyers, these sort of guys that I was mixing with and going, oh my God, you got to get into crypto. It's amazing. And they're like, oh yeah, but how do we choose the best ones? And I'm like, I'd already written a book on how to choose stocks. And so I adapted that for how to choose the best crypto. And I was teaching people how to choose the best crypto. And they're like, oh, that's great, but it takes me about 3 hours. And I don't have time because I'm working my business. And I'm like, oh, okay. And a few people came back to me and said, will you do it for me? Because you're doing it every day. You love doing it. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, as a financial advisor, I would advise you to go and buy the shares, but I wouldn't be buying and selling them for you, right? There's a limit to the license. So I said, oh, I really couldn't do it for you. And after the fourth or fifth person asked me, can you do it for me? Can you do it for me? I went, the only way I could do it ethically and morally and legally is to form like a mutual fund.
Right. A little hedge fund.
Yeah. We're all familiar with the mutual funds where you can walk in and you can buy the S&P 500, or you can buy the Chinese property trust, or you can buy the whatever. And so my mate said, yeah, I'll drop in 10,000. And I put in 10,000 and someone else put in 10,000. And we started this little thing. And there was only 6 or 8 of us when it first started. And I said, look, we'll run it for a year or so.
Right.
And if it goes well, then we'll launch it to the market. And if it doesn't go well, then we'll just bury it and pretend it never happened. And the 6 people will just swear in our graves never to speak of it again, right?
Yes.
But 18 months, we outperformed Bitcoin and went, that's pretty good. So then we launched it to the market and said, hey, anybody who wants to get into crypto safely, simply, diversified. So you're not just, because when Bitcoin goes down, something else goes up, right? Same as the stock market. So diversified into like 40 different assets, we'll manage it for you. And yeah, we named it after the dog because we couldn't think of anything else to call it. But it's about helping people. And busy people, people with a lot of money tend to be very busy. You have a lot of money and you got no time. And there's people who have got a lot of time but no money. Like in the olden days, I was the guy with no money, but I had a lot of time. So I could help people, I could do favors, I could send them articles out of the newspaper, I could connect them up with other people. And that's, using your time to add value brings you a lot of money. Then you got a lot of money and you go, I've got less time. I need to start outsourcing all my things now and spreading the wealth around. But yeah, absolutely helping people, finding a gap in the marketplace. I mean,
it's better than money. You know what I mean? I mean, I think that's the thing is I can see it in your eye. Like when you're talking, can you turn up your mic just a teeny bit? Yeah. Cause it's like, it's like, I can see the spark in your eye. I want to go back to 2008 briefly because of your energy and the way you come across and your authenticity. I'm just curious about what happened to you in 2008.
Okay, you want to get onto the health and emotional, all that sort of stuff.
It doesn't have to be emotional, but whatever. Because I do believe that with health crisis, with great loss, with the tragedy, with something that scares us and brings us into our morality, things shift. Right? We become different people. So what happened in 2008?
2006, I think it was. Yeah, 2005, 2006. So yeah, I've been working in financial planning, and this was my own mindset of being an employee. My parents were employees. Everybody I knew was an employee. And as an employee, the more hours you work, the more money you get paid, right? And this is what I was subconsciously raised to think. If you put in the overtime, you get more money, right? But when you're running your own business, you get paid on results. Like a real estate person gets paid on how many houses they sell, not how many hours they put into selling the house. So I still had the unconscious programming of the more hours I work, the more I get paid, which is true to a certain degree because I was meeting people at 7 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock at night and traveling to meet people. I was doing a lot of long hours, working 6 days a week, mostly 15, 16-hour days, and not taking good care of my health, not taking good care of my relationships. And yeah, I had a heart attack. And that's kind of a bit of a wake-up call. I mean, I started off by getting flu and that sort of stuff, but I would just continue to go to work because I can't afford to take a week off when I'm sick.
Right.
Because I need to make more money. I need to help more people. I need to do things. And yeah, after the heart attack, I'm lying on the table with my surgeon, and he says, "You need to change some shit in your life, Otherwise, you'll be back here in 12 months. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, this is what I do for a living, right? I'm a heart surgeon. He said, if someone has a heart attack, and I was 33 at the time, he says, someone has a heart attack when they're young, they're generally back within 12 months, and sometimes the second heart attack is fatal. And I'm like, oh, poop. I've got 3 young kids in school, right? I think the youngest hadn't even started school at that stage.
Oh my goodness.
And so I thought, okay, doctor, what do I change? And he's like, I'm not a friggin' life coach, man. I'm a surgeon. Like, I don't know what you change. Just change something. Otherwise, you'll be back here in 12 months' time. And I was like, okay, I've got to change some stuff. It was literally gun to my head moment. I was going to die if I didn't change things. So, because I was working long hours, I would have like 6 to 8 cups of coffee a day. Right? I'm like, okay, coffee's got to go. Coffee's a stimulant. When I was going to bed at 11 o'clock at night, my brain was still racing with clients and facts and figures. So I'm like, 3 or 4 shots of bourbon, that'll put me to sleep.
Right.
And I was smoking cigarettes. Again, through the day, I'd be skipping lunch, having coffee and cigarettes. So like, okay, gave up alcohol, gave up cigarettes, gave up coffee.
Crap. All right away?
Yeah. My body went into some sort of shock. Because I was having cravings, but I didn't know for what. And this is just me. So I mean, I'm not a health expert or anything like that. But I noticed when I cooked meat in the fry pan, you put the fry pan to one side and the fat goes solid at room temperature. Whereas when you're having a salad that's got oil all over the salad, vegetable oil is liquid at room temperature. And I thought, okay, maybe that's not so good for me to be eating meat because the fat solid at room temperature might block up my arteries. So I switched to vegetarian right, at the same time. And like, I didn't know anybody who was vegetarian. I'd never heard of a tofu. I didn't know what a lentil was. So I was just eating like carrots and beans and rice and things like that. And I'm giving up red meat. I'm giving up dairy. I'm giving up alcohol, coffee, cigarettes. My body just went bananas for about 3 weeks. But after that, I had so much energy. I slept better. And I tried to explain it to someone who was a carnivore and said, when the lion eats a big gazelle, it's got to lie down and sleep for 3 or 4 hours. Like when you have Christmas dinner, you have the turkey and stuff, you lie down and sleep. But the gazelle has to run all day to be away from the lion. So I think maybe the plant-based diet gives you more energy than a meat-based diet. I don't know. It worked for me.
Well, it worked for you. And, I think that the science is coming out now. Because I've been in health and wellness, fitness forever, I'm always like, just eat a good omnivore diet. You don't have to do extremes. It's like everyone's intermittent fasting and carnivore and Ozempic and all these things. And I'm like, just eat a regular diet, So for me, it's always like I roll my eyes. 4 decades later, just hearing one more thing. But I really like that image of the carnivore and the diet of the gazelle and the lion. It's absolutely true.
Yeah. I suggest it for my clients and say, hey, do 10 days, right? Anyone can do 10 days trial, right? So 10 days of no meat and no dairy and see how you feel. You'll either feel better or you'll feel worse. If you feel better, keep going. So my parents are now having like fish. They have meat maybe once a week, if that. But they're mostly on this kind of like fish and veggies, kind of like the old Japanese diet.
The pescatarian.
Yeah. But for some people, like one of my clients who after 10 days of no meat, he started to get the shakes and feel bad. So he's like, cool, went back onto meat, but that's okay. Like it didn't kill him to try it for 10 days.
Sure.
But most others, and including one of my guys who was a marathon runner in his 40s, and he did the 10 days, no meat and no dairy. He said he ran a faster time at 43 than he did when he was 16. And like he's a marathon runner, like he's all about the speed. He said, if someone had said to me, you'll run faster on a plant-based diet, I would never have believed them.
Wow.
But because he did it himself, after 10 days, he went for a run and went, holy crap. It was amazing. So it doesn't work for everybody, but you won't know if it works for you until you try it out.
Right. No, it's good. And that's what I love about you. And I love listening to you because I believe that it works for you, but you also trust what's better for other people. And to me, that is a winning combination, especially when you're in the business like you are, because that means that you're giving a suggestion and you're educating people, and yet you're leaving it up to them to what feels best for them. So that's a really powerful courageous position to take in life. Did you feel like, from a psychological perspective, that you shifted too after the heart attack and all these
Oh,
changes?
hell yeah. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It was amazing. Like I had a partner who had given up meat and dairy because she was passionate about the animals. Like, she believed in not torturing the animals and blah 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 blah. I
Right.
couldn't give a stuff about the animals, right? As far as I was
We all have our
concerned,
reasons.
the little lamb was born on the farm to die on the farm. If there was no meat industry, there'd be no lambs born, right? Like, that was
Right.
my philosophy. I didn't care
Yep.
about the animals. I was very selfish. I was focused on my own health and my own family, because I wanted to stay alive long enough to see my kids grow up, right?
Sure.
So I was being vegetarian for my selfish health reasons. She was being vegetarian because she was compassionate about animals. But over time, it changes you biologically. I became more compassionate. I
Wow.
became more caring about animals and other people and that sort of stuff. I mean, what are we now? 15 years now. I haven't killed a mosquito. I haven't killed a bug, right? Um, just I'll catch a spider and I'll put it outside, right? I'll
Right.
catch something. That's just what I do. I'll catch a mosquito in my hand like that and I'll release it rather than go and
Right.
smack and killing it. But that's
Yeah.
that's something that's gradually happened to me over time, and you just go, that's freaking weird. And I go, well, it is what it is,
How did
right? As I
your
say,
relationship? How did your relationship shift?
oh, back then, yeah, this was part of the giving up stuff that stressed me out. So yeah, got rid of all the meat and the dairy and the cigarettes and the alcohol. But also at the time, as I said, I was working like 15-hour days. So I quit that.
Yeah.
My partner, I mean, probably, I'll say the problem was mine because I was at work all the time. You know,
Right.
I thought my partner married me because she wanted shiny rings and trips overseas and that sort of stuff. So I would buy her a trip to Canada, I'd buy her a trip to Europe and that sort of stuff. But she'd go by herself because I was too busy. I was working all the time.
Right.
So we weren't really that good friends. We were more
Mm.
roommates because we hadn't spent time together, because I was spending all my time at work. So that relationship was stressing me out. So I got rid of that relationship. I literally sold my 7-bedroom mansion. I moved to the beach, got a little beach shack, and I started a new business in a town where I knew nobody.
Yeah.
I became single and I had my kids at home, and I just focused on what makes me happy is helping other people. But I also wanted to spend time with my kids. So in the morning, I'd drop my kids off at school. I'd see my first client at 9 o'clock, see another client at 11, I'd see another client for lunch. And then I'd finish work for the day. I'd go and pick up my kids from school. We'd spend the rest of the day at the beach or going
Mm.
shopping or in the park or whatever. So I was working like 4 or 5 hours a day and working 4 days a week instead of working 70, 80 hours. And prioritizing my kids and my health and my wellness and my happiness in a way that
Wow.
I'd never done. And I'd done the math, Kate. So, when I was working, when I was working 70 hours a week, I was
Hence.
bringing in this much money. And part of the reason I sold my house and I sold a couple of cars and this sort of stuff, I downsized my life so I could live at this little beach shack, because I figured if I'm going to work 20 hours a week, my income's going to drop by 2/3. So I need to scale my lifestyle back and live very, very cheaply. But I didn't really notice that I was starving. And at the end of 12 months, when I checked my books and go, holy cow, I cut my working hours by 60%, my income went down by 10%.
Wow.
I know, right? You'd never believe it's true, but like I lived it, I did it.
Wow.
And I even talked to some of my clients and went like, how is this even possible? And it was weird because I moved like 3 or 4 hours away from where I used to live, and one of my clients followed me. Like he would drive to come and see me because he
Mm.
couldn't find a better financial planner in the old town. And I said, like, I'm working less and I'm making more money. And he said, yeah, and you're certainly much more pleasant to deal with now. I said, what do you mean by that? And Donald says, well, you used to be writing the things down that I was saying. He said, I could see your white knuckles. I could see you were stressed. And he said, now you're relaxed and you're happy and people just want to deal with you. He said, I've referred
Wow.
other people to you because who wants to deal with a stressed financial guy when you could deal with a happy guy? And I was like, holy crap, man, why didn't you tell me when I was white knuckling it? He says, it wasn't my job to say. But
Wow.
now that you're happy, I want to give you more business. And I'm like, oh my God. Like the old shit, you know, money doesn't bring you happiness, but if you've got happiness, the money comes. And
That is powerful.
it's amazing. But
That's beautiful.
do you want to buy a $5 coffee from the stressed chickie at the Starbucks? Or do you want to buy a $7 coffee from the really happy hippie people that make you feel welcome and remember your name?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Gosh, that's good. That's a real good testament to just the power of a big thing happening and the shifts that you make. And your shifts were very bold. I mean, that was a big shift. I didn't realize it was that much. That's pretty impressive. So we're talking a little bit about gold. We're talking a little bit about crypto. If you were to give, I liked the description, like when you were describing when you first were learning about Bitcoin as little, like I was picturing you playing with Legos, to be honest. Because you're like, you just put a little on this and a little about that. And I'm thinking my kid's playing Legos. That's what it looked like to me. How would you describe Bitcoin to someone that really doesn't know much about it, has heard a lot about it, is interested in putting their toe in? How would you recommend that they do that?
The best explanation that I've had is the one that Andrew gave me. Was gold that you can email.
Yes.
Right? Because you buy a bar of gold, it's heavy. It's really heavy. Like you're not prepared for an ounce of gold to be as heavy as it is. It's so much heavier than an ounce of silver. A silver coin.
Yeah.
But the thing with gold is you can't transport it, right?
Right.
It's very difficult. You can't put 3 bricks in your bag and travel overseas. Even with cash, like you can't go through the airport with $50,000 in cash. They've got the sniffer dogs that are not sniffing for drugs; they're sniffing for cash.
Crazy.
Bitcoin, I can transfer $50,000, $150,000, and it costs 50 cents.
Right.
Whereas a transfer, like I did a transfer for a client yesterday, day before, $50,000, and it takes 24 hours because that's what the bank does.
Yes.
Right?
Or
sometimes
longer.
you have to pay $10 or $15 for
more than that.
transfer. Yeah. And if I'm transferring from Australia to US or from US to China or whatever, then you've got to pay the currency conversion fee, which might be 1 or 2% of the amount.
Right.
Like, I can email you an ounce of gold, a gram of gold, or a bar of gold, and it still costs 50 cents, regardless of how much I send. Like $10 million, 50 cents. $1,000, 50 cents. So, I mean, with Bitcoin, and this is what I didn't know at the time, is it's a scarce commodity. There's only 21 million Bitcoin in the world. Like there's only a certain amount of gold in the world. But Elon Musk can fly a space rocket into an asteroid and get another 10 tons of gold and bring it back down to Earth and go, yay, we're all going to be rich. But no, if there's more gold, it becomes less scarce, which means it becomes less valuable. And we've just lived through a period of time where the Federal Reserve has printed 40% more cash than was in circulation in 2020. And when there's 40% more cash, everything becomes more expensive because the money becomes less valuable. And we've seen hyperinflation and this sort of stuff going on. So Bitcoin it's a scarce commodity. They can't make any more. There's no Bitcoin on another planet, but you can email it. You can store it on a little USB drive. When I came to visit you in the States, I had like $15,000 worth of Bitcoin on a little drive in my pocket.
So
and
awesome.
I could go through the airport and I could sign a form saying, no, I'm not carrying money overseas.
Right. That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's so good. So as far as like diversification, because you have a financial background, well, just interesting that the JP Morgan guy came out and said, yeah, everyone should own gold. There's just some big conspiracy weird stuff going on anyway. Yeah. But what percentage, do you have a percentage that you suggest that people buy in Bitcoin, or how do they go about beginning to investing in it?
It depends, Kate, if you want to be completely, you can be completely active with your investments. You can literally be buying Tesla shares at 9 o'clock in the morning and selling them at 5 p.m. and rotating into pharmaceutical stocks. And if that's your job and if that's what you do all day, every day, and you don't have anything else going on, that's cool. Or you can be completely passive, where you get some sort of like the index funds, or you'll have the 401k where it's 25% in property and 25% in stocks and 5% in gold and whatever. That's completely passive. You don't look at your 401k for years and years and years at a time. You don't change any of the mixes. Or you can be in between, where you can flex occasionally. So, I mean, gold has just hit an all-time high, right? So people have been calling me this week and going, oh my God, should I buy gold? Should I buy gold, right? And if you go on our website, you'll see September 2019. 6 months before the pandemic, right? When it wasn't even a thing. It was back then, everything was going wonderfully well, but we saw the indicators that led to a stock market crash, right? The
Mm,
same indicators that I saw in 2006 when I wrote my book saying there's going to be a stock market crash. And of course, 2008, we had the global financial crisis,
right.
everything went to shit. And when everything goes to shit, the Reserve Bank responds by printing cash, because otherwise, if people don't have enough money, there's a Great Depression event, there's a run on the banks, blah, blah, blah. It's hell on earth. So they react in predictable fashion. So we saw the same indicators in 2019. We said there's going to be a stock market crash. We don't know where, we don't know when, but the banks are going to respond in typical fashion by printing cash, which is going to devalue most things. So buy gold, buy silver, buy Bitcoin. Now, back then, gold was $1,500 an ounce.
Right.
That's when we said to buy, right? Just in the last few weeks, obviously, yeah, the stock market crash did happen. We didn't know the disease outbreak was going to happen, but we knew there was going to be a stock market crash. And gold went up 50% during the pandemic. Silver went up 100%. Bitcoin went up 400%. Because again, they're all scarce commodities.
Sure.
And when banks start printing cash, those things go up in value the most. So when people were saying buy gold, I'm like, no, have a look at what's going on in the world, not to get conspiracy theory on your ass, but there's like 6 media outlets that control everything you see in the news, everything you see on TV. And guess what? They're run by billionaires. Now, the billionaires are probably smarter than me, or maybe they've read my book, which tells you how to time the economy. So they would have been buying the gold in 2019, or if not 2020. They've now had a massive run up, right? They've gone from $1,500 an ounce to $4,000, $5,000 an ounce. They need people to buy their gold so they can sell it, right?
Yes,
so
of course.
the billionaires start talking to the media saying, oh, look, make sure you publish lines of people standing outside the building. Were those pictures taken last week, or were they taken 5 years ago? I don't know.
Right.
But they're going, gold's at an all-time high. Everybody buy, everybody buy. Even JP Morgan was coming out saying, yeah, gold's $5,000 an ounce. Next year, it might be 6,000. Well, that's a 20% increase. That's not a 100% increase like we've had previously.
Right.
So even the experts are saying it's not going to go up by much, but the billionaires are going, buy gold. And then as soon as everybody was lining up to buy the gold, the retail people who are watching the news, guess what? The billionaires dumped their gold. The gold price dropped by 8% in a day.
Right.
So I like to teach people how to time the markets, but time it slowly, right? Every 3, 4, 5 years. So that's why, like, I've been pretty silent for the last few years. You know, I've been quietly accumulating Bitcoin and accumulating a few other things, but I'm selling my gold and silver right now.
Sure.
And one of these clients who rang up and said, hey, you know, should I buy gold? I'm saying, hell no. Get out of gold if you've got gold. Otherwise, just don't buy it right now. And she said, oh, you're just saying that because you're in crypto. I said, go onto my Facebook page, click on my marketplace profile, and you'll see I'm selling my silver bars and my silver coins right now.
You're doing it on Marketplace.
Oh, yeah,
that's
because I don't want to go to the bullion dealer where they take my photo ID.
I know. It's true.
I want to sell it to someone else who's just.
Do you meet people at some location?
No, I get them to come to my house. I don't give a damn.
Yeah, well, you're good. I'd be too afraid to do that as a girl.
I've got 2 Boston Terriers, man. Like 6 kilos of pure terror. If you try and attack me, you're going to get taken down by a little 6 kilo.
Right.
What's that? 10 pound?
So give me your overview. I would love your macro picture for what's up in our worldwide economy. Just a quick snapshot of what's going on, because I think that the bottom line is, the K-shaped recovery, or the K-shaped economy as they talk about it, and people who are on the lower part of the K are definitely struggling. You know, we just see the struggle of the middle class and even the upper middle class, not to mention the people who are just more paycheck to paycheck, and majority of people are. And they're saying that even people who are making 300 G's are having trouble making their payments. So
because 300 G's isn't 300 G's anymore. They've printed more cash.
Yeah,
which is devalued. It's like a 40% tax. If they print 40% more cash, they've taken away the spending power of your dollar. And you go, well, the average waitress is still getting paid, $6 or $7, whatever the price was, 5 years ago. You're still on basically the same salary.
Right.
The price of gas has gone up. The price of oranges has gone up. The price of your insurances have gone up by more than 30% in the last couple of years. And you go, holy crap. So you need to be invested in something that is beating inflation
Right.
after tax. This is the thing. If inflation's running at 5%, which it's not, just quietly, that's the official government figures, and it's a lie. But if you put your cash in the bank and you earn 5%, yay, but you got to pay tax on the interest you earn. So you might only be pocketing 3%. And then the price of oranges and oil and petrol has gone up by 10%. And you go, I'm slowly going backwards. But if you're slowly sinking in the quicksand, you don't really notice, you don't really panic, and you just quietly fade away, right? But we need to actually get aggressive about it and say, hey, and again, diversification is your friend. So,
Right.
Even though I'm a crypto guy with a vested interest, don't put all your money in crypto. That's freaking insane, right? Crypto's
Right.
volatile as all hell. It's much more volatile than the stock market, but it also performs better over time. So crypto's been the number one performing asset class over the last 15 years. But there are times, such as during a pandemic, such as during a depression or a recession or whatever, when gold will exceed that, right? There's times when property will go really, really well if the interest rates are low. We've also seen property go backwards during the global financial crisis when Detroit properties dropped by 60, 70%.
Right.
And the McMansions were all empty and people couldn't sell them because there was no one buying. We've seen stock market crashes like 9/11 and during the pandemic and this sort of stuff. So diversification, if you can have a little bit of property, a little bit of stocks, a little bit of crypto, a little bit of whatever, and even if you've only got $5,000, you can't obviously go and buy a quarter of a property, but you can get into a REIT, like a real estate investment trust. You can have a little bit of property in your portfolio. So again, set it and forget it, basically.
Right.
Have your allocation similar to your 401k. There's little apps out there like Raise and Acorns that'll allow you to put in $5 or $10 a week.
Right.
And they'll
Just
split the
that
diversification
amount.
for you.
Right. I think that's a beautiful thing. Any of the viewers or listeners are out there that they're saying, oh my gosh, I don't know where to start, or I don't have enough. I remember I was putting my former husband was like, we can't save any money for the kids' college. Like, we don't have any money. And I would just like sneak $50 a month in for them.
Yeah.
And then once it got to time for the college, I had the money because I had saved this little bit. So there's never, every small amount that you save and put away will multiply. And especially if you diversify, I think that's the ticket.
Yeah. I mean, again, you're a gold bug, but people who say to me like, oh, should I buy gold? Say, well, I'm saying no at the moment, but don't believe me. Do your own research. Go to goldprice.org.
Yes.
And set the chart out for 30 years.
Yes.
Right? And you'll see gold sat flat, did nothing.
Yep.
Right? And then the Twin Towers went down in 2001 and people panicked and go, oh my God, it's the end of the world, right? The stock market dropped and the gold price jumped by about 50%.
Yeah.
You go, cool. And then the gold price sat flat for 7 years, did nothing. And then we had the 2008 global financial crisis.
That was my heyday.
Property went down, shares went down, and gold jumped up by 50, 60%.
Right.
And then gold sat flat for the next 12 years until the pandemic came along and banks started printing cash, and then gold jumped up again. So if you want to be in 100% gold, be prepared to be really, really bored and really, really sad for about 7 or 8 years in a row, and then very, very excited in 1 year.
Right.
Otherwise, while the gold was sitting flat for 7 to 12 years, meanwhile, other aspects of the economy are taking off. And this is why we were buying gold in 2019. No one was touching gold and silver back then. It was boring because the stock market was going great. The property market was going great. Everybody was focused on the exciting one. We went and bought the boring one because we know that eventually every 7 to 12 years, it rotates out.
Yes.
So anybody who's listening, if you jump onto bostontrading.co, sign up for the crypto newsletter, even if you don't like crypto, doesn't matter.
I can't believe I'm not getting it.
We report about the macroeconomics of the entire economy, how this affects this, because the stock market affects the crypto market. But also you'll get a free copy of my book. And this book was written 20 freaking years ago, but it's still current because the tool I use is 300 years old. Right? America's only 200 years old. Australia's only 200 years old. But in Europe, they've got records of the property prices from the 1600s. They've got records of the stock prices from the 1600s when Johnny Depp and the pirates were still running around town, right? The Dutch East India Company was one of the first stocks. So when you lay out a chart of what stocks have done over 400 years, you can say, yeah, they've gone up and down, but they've always gone up. And property prices, they've gone up and down, but they've always gone up. And you overlay them, and you see when property was going down in 1492, stock market was going up. When this was happening in 1918, this one, and they swap over. So if you watch that chart, this is the tool that I use in the book, literally tells you, okay, if the stock market's doing this, then the Reserve Bank has to do this. They have to put the interest rates up, right? And then that means that it makes it more unaffordable for people to buy houses. And then people can't buy new houses, so construction slows down, which leads to less employment, which leads to this, which leads to this. And then we start to go into a little recession, and then the government drops the interest rates, or the Reserve Bank drops the interest rates, which stimulates this, which does this, which does this. And the pattern repeats, on a 7 to 10 year cycle, and has repeated for 400 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you can pretty well set your watch by it, but you don't need to be waking up on Monday and going, sell all of this and buy all of this, because if you're 3 months early or if you're 6 months early, it doesn't matter. I mean, I wrote that book saying there's going to be a stock market crash. I was 2 years early. Right. But I was definitely in at the right time.
Right.
And with the pandemic prediction, or we didn't know it was pandemic, it was the 2019, we were saying there's going to be a stock market crash. And there was, but we were 6 months early. But being 6 months early to the party is better than being 3 months late. You don't want to be getting out of stocks the day after 9/11. You want to be getting out 6 months before it happened.
Absolutely.
So
well, what do you think about
tool?
Yeah, so we'll make sure you guys you go on bostontrading.co for the newsletter and the copy of the free book. All of this will be in the show notes. Make sure you do that. Don't miss out on this, because that information is available to you, and we're all going to take advantage of it, because information and knowledge is power. And then taking action is where the money is. Yeah. And again, it's small, right action. I mean, that's the beauty of it all. So just a final question, just as far as money printing, what up with all this trillions of dollars in debt? Where does this go? Is this going to go into stable coins? Is it going to be vapor? How is USA spreading our debt goodness across the world? I'm just curious about your insight on that.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why I wrote the book 20 years ago was because most of you guys weren't alive. But back then, people were borrowing money for houses. And like the standard thing is you'd put down a 10% deposit, you'd borrow 90% from the bank, you go and buy a house. And if the value of the house went up or down, it didn't matter so much, right? But the bank started to get greedy, and they were giving 110% loans. So the whole lot of the house price, plus you could pay for the stamp duty and the conveyances and the solicitors, plus you could buy yourself some nice furniture. And that was okay to give 110% loan as long as the house prices kept going up. But right. History has shown us that after 4 or 5 years of going up, house prices start to come back down. So I was thinking this is going to end badly. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were giving out 110% loans. People had student loans. The banks were lending out more and more money and going, America at the time was about $20 trillion in debt. I said, this is going to end badly. This is like your friend who's spent all her money on handbags and her credit card's full, and she's going, oh, it's okay, Kate, because I've got another credit card. Yeah. And then she goes and spends that one out. And then she goes, oh, now the bank won't give me another credit card, but I've got a personal loan, and I've got the personal loan to pay off the credit card, and then I could go and get another credit card. And you're like, oh my God, just stop, right? Susan, yes. Just stop. So what's happening now is like, the US government, $37 trillion in debt, and they're spending more on interest than they spend on welfare and social security, spending more on interest than they do on defense. And the US spends more on defense than the next 10 countries combined, right. The next 9 countries combined. I think like if someone wanted to take down the US, they'd have to have 11 countries come together because the US has a really big defense budget, right? But now they're spending more on the interest bill than they are on defense. And if you have a friend who's spending more on their mortgage or more on their credit card payments than they are on food, than they are on like living, then you go, this is a disaster waiting to happen. And your friend, she's just got to declare bankruptcy, right? Sooner or later. She might be able to get more credit cards and borrow money from Lithuania for a few years and stave it off. But sooner or later, she's going to get bankruptcy, or she's got to win the lottery and pay it all out. Not a good strategy, by the way. No. But the US has got an interesting advantage over an individual. It doesn't have to declare bankruptcy. It can hyperinflate the dollars and go $37 trillion. That's nothing. Watch this. They turn on the money printers and just print more cash, which they can pay down the debt. But obviously, everybody suffers. because
Right.
you used to earn $300,000, but now $300,000 can only buy what $100,000 used to do.
Yes.
Anybody who's studied history will know what happened to the Weimar Republic, Germany after World War One. World War One, they blew up a lot of stuff. They had to pay back all the nations that they destroyed, and they just started printing cash and printing cash and printing cash. And eventually, it was wheelbarrows full of cash to try and buy a loaf of bread. Same thing happened in Zimbabwe in 2008, 2010. Shopping bags full of cash, because the government just kept printing more and more money until the currency was worthless. But for the US, good news is the debt is also worthless. So they can devalue the debt and make the debt disappear, but people will be carrying shopping bags full of cash.
Right.
So
Exactly.
again, don't put your savings in cash, because they can make more cash. It's like dust, it's like water, it's like ice cubes. They can always make more, and it's just going to disappear on you. But if you've got a scarce commodity, whether it's land, whether it's gold, whether it's Bitcoin, whatever it is, that thing is going to become more valuable, because there's more cash to buy the stuff, but there's not more stuff. They can't make any more of that stuff.
Right.
So that's a hot tip for you. But yeah, I mean, the US is going to go on. They can stave off bankruptcy for the next 20 years, possibly, if
Yeah.
they want to. Or they can just go and declare war on some other nation and steal their stuff, weapons of mass
Right.
destruction.
I know. We go right back to the Old Testament. They kill everybody, and then they go in and pillage all the stuff. The number of times I
Yeah,
read that in the Old Testament, I was studying it this summer. I'm like, oh my
yeah,
gosh, pillage, pillage, pillage.
yeah,
But it's
yeah.
happening in modern day. I mean, pillage is happening. Look
I
at
know.
Venezuela, and it's just there's plenty of examples of us doing. We're right back in the Old Testament times. It's like history
We went
repeats.
looking for weapons of mass destruction. We didn't find the weapons of mass destruction. But while we're there, there's a
Yeah,
whole bunch of gold that Saddam Hussein's been hanging on to. Let's just take that.
yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
sure.
It's insane. It's absolutely
Yeah.
insane. Well, I just want to. I love your parting words, but I just want to say to the viewers and listeners that even in times of uncertainty, when you're feeling there's a large disruption, I mean, you heard Jeremy's story about how he took a time of great adversity and turned it into some real positive experience. And I talk about it often, both on my podcast and when I'm interviewed and from stage, that through adversity, even in, unfortunately, the most tragic, losing my child, right? That
Mm,
even through that dark, dark time, that I've been able to transform and transmute the grief into the light of me doing interviews like this, or me
yeah.
speaking to people, or still bringing the light, because that's our job. We're here
Mm,
to serve. And I believe, and I always say this, it's I believe, our obligation, our responsibility to find that unique way that we're here to serve, and then give it all you got in that
absolutely.
place. So,
You're
yeah,
adding value, Dal. You're adding value all
right.
the time.
Yeah,
So,
I love that. AV baby. All right, so
AV.
what's your closing words for our beautiful audience today?
Oh man. So decide where you want to be. Like there's some people who want to be day traders. Good luck to you. I did that. All my hair fell out. And at the end of 12 months of thousands of trades, I started during the pandemic because I had nothing better to do. Because I used to day trade stocks back in the day. So I started day trading crypto 2020. But at the end of the year, at the end of 365 days, thousands of trades, I'd made more money by the stuff that I bought and held onto and didn't touch than
Excellent.
all of these hundreds and hundreds of trades. Because obviously, yeah, some days I'd make 40%, the next day I'd lose 10%. But over time, the lazy
Yes.
way worked better for me.
Yes.
So again, try going vegetarian for 10 days. You'll either feel better or you'll feel worse. Try day trading for a week. You'll either love it or you'll tear your hair out. Or try having a portfolio that's set up where you can say, I'm going to look at my portfolio once every 3 to 5 years, which is what I teach in the economic clock, right, in the book. Or otherwise, you have a portfolio. Harry Markowitz won the Nobel Prize for economics by designing a portfolio that you could literally set it and forget it. And he back tested it over through world wars, through all different scenarios, because everything that pops up now, there's been a precedent, right? There was a pandemic in 1918. We had the Spanish flu, right? There's been World War I and World War II, and the stock market still survived. People still buy properties. People still buy medication. People still buy gold, even after all the turmoil that we've had. So you can
Yes.
have the portfolio that you literally set it and forget it for 10, 20 years. or you can be a little bit more active and change it maybe every 1 to 3 years, or you can be doing it every day. So find your personality type,
Right.
and then find someone who can actually show you how to do that.
Right.
Make sure they've got experience, because there's plenty of people out there like, yeah, I'll teach you how to day trade. Like, cool. How long have you been doing it for? 2 years? Well, you haven't been through a bear market. You haven't been through a war. You haven't been through this.
You're 20 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you know?
If your date of birth starts with a 2, you cannot be a life coach or an economist. I'm sorry.
It's true. It's so true. Well, I'm so grateful that we finally had this time together. And I would just add to what you said. Absolutely, education is power, but you also have to find the partners and people that you trust to do your investments with. And I believe you're one of those people. So I that's why I was so glad to have you on the show. A real person,
You made me wait a year. Like we've had this conversation.
I know.
You didn't just meet me and throw me on the show. You wanted to suss me out from all angles.
No. I knew from the minute. I mean, I think that's the ticket with when you lead with light and you lead with authenticity that you attract. Like attracts alike. So yeah, I like to hang with people that are similar because it's nice.
Yes,
it's nice. Oh my gosh. So audiences, viewers, make sure you tap on to bostontrading.co. The information's in the show notes. If you have any information or any questions that you have, you want to ask Jeremy, please reach out to him. He's available. He's awesome. He's actually, again, he's in Australia, but he's been really receptive to me and connecting with me. So I'm super grateful for that. So thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And thanks to all the viewers and listeners for tuning in to once again Master Your Life, Kate McKay. And remember, every single relationship that you build with trust and authenticity are the ones that will have the greatest impact in your life. And you are here to live in your greatness. And so lean into that today and every day. Take good care, everyone.